All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of EM Weekly. I'm Zack, your host, and today I'm excited to be joined by two of L3 Harris's best and brightest when it comes to emergency communications, and I'm super excited. Gentlemen, if you'll introduce yourselves, and then we're going to learn a little bit about you.
My name is Aaron Williams. I'm the Vice President of Global Sales here for the Public Safety Division of L3 Harris.
And I'm Jason Burt. I'm our Director of Sales Engineering. I've been with the company for 25 years, a variety of different roles, but looking forward to talking with you today, Zack.
So 25 years, that is a solid run at a company. I tend to jump ship after 2 to 3 years. I get bored very easily. I lease cars. I do all that stuff. Maybe tell us a little bit about why you've stuck with the company so long, and then we'll sort of discuss about the, why L3 Harris, I'll go to you, Aaron, and sort of like, how did you get to this position? Why did you, stick around with this? What is so exciting about L3 Harris? But 25 years, that's crazy.
Yeah, so I started right out of college, graduated from Florida State University back in 1998, and started out kind of in the system engineering world, doing a lot of system designs for customers, specifically responding to RFPs, and really liked the customer engagement side of things, going out, talking to customers, helping them solve their problems. That kind of morphed into more of a management role, and then took a stint in product management to really try and come up with some solution sets to solve those customer problems. And so I spent about 5 years there. And then Aaron approached me one day and said, you need to come over to sales. And so here I am, 25 years into it and loving every day.
And Aaron, since you're, his boss, like you saw the talent there, you grabbed him, and that means, you must see something in him that you see in yourself in the company. So how come you're at L3 Harris? What excites you about L3 Harris?
Yeah, first of all, his talent's not hidden. I think everybody would fight to have him on their team. So I just recognize that, as I build my team and who actually can get the job done, and Jason's a solid leader from a people standpoint. So I've been here. This is my 6th year. I have a very weird background compared to most people.
Oh.
I came from the nuclear power industry. So,
oh, wow. That is an unexpected answer.
Exactly. So it's kind of given me a unique background in different areas, right? So cybersecurity wasn't new to us on that side. That was something that we probably led the forefront on that we're seeing now in public safety, and we'll talk about later. Also standard practices about how you document lessons learned. How do you get better? How do you make sure that mistakes that happen in the field, you go about a process of fixing that? So a lot of those things contributed to my job now. But when I came here, I was really looking for less travel, which honestly, I traveled just as much, but that's okay. I have 5 kids, so my wife was like, all right, enough's enough. She actually applied for me first, and then I ended up getting it. So I came in as head of strategy, served that role for about 2 years, and then I took over the Northeast sales team, and then took over the entire sales organization. It's been a wild ride. It's probably the craziest industry I think I've ever been a part of, is the radio industry, for lots of reasons, which we can get into. But I'll say that L3 Harris, from my standpoint, is definitely a culture game changer. We very much still operate on a personal level with our customers. You'll see that from our testimonials to when you go to our users group conference. You just get a different feel for how we treat our customers and how we interact with them, right? It's not a business transaction. It's definitely more of a marriage, right? Where sometimes we will fight, sometimes we will scream at each other, and other times we'll hug and cry it out. So, I really love the culture here and our ability to solve problems for the industry and for our customers, and then come back with ideas and thoughts on what we can do and partners we can work with to give them the best in class type solutions. And so that's really why I really enjoy being here.
Real quick, we're going to take an ad break. Are you ready to enhance your emergency response skills? Join us in L3 Harris on July 23rd at the Hilton Vancouver, Washington for Stressing Communications, a specialized training and exercise event designed for first responders. This year's scenario is mass casualty incident at a parade featuring today's most advanced critical communications technologies. Hear from keynote speakers like Pete Gaynor, Jake Shores, Anthony Escato, and Barry Moss, leaders in emergency management and communications. Don't miss this opportunity to learn from the best, network with peers, and prepare for the unexpected. Register today. Yeah, I think that relationship is something that I have found, like, I'm pretty fortunate. I've been on sort of both sides of this, right? I've been an active emergency manager where I had to go through, procurement and RFPs and trying to find companies that I want to work with that have stuff that I want to use. And so I've seen the full gambit from like heartless, cold salespeople who could absolutely care less. They just want to sell me the thing, to folks that like just go absolutely above and beyond and, put themselves on the line to make sure that like, hey, this is going to work for you. Like if we're not in the contracting process fully fleshed out yet, but you need this, like we're going to figure out a way to get you the equipment if it's a life-saving equipment as soon as possible. L3 Harris has definitely been, and this is not me buttering you guys up. This is a genuine response that I have been extremely impressed with everyone that I've worked with at L3 Harris. And have seen it and had heard from it from folks that use your products, and so it is really interesting. And I think, L3 Harris itself is an impressive company. It's everything, right? You guys are doing, there's rockets, there's satellites, there's different, military. So my introduction to L3 Harris was actually the, Prick 117, on my military side. And so there's just all of this different stuff. So to have a company of that scale, but still have individuals that care about the customers is super impressive. And, I guess we'll sort of talk about that. Like when you are, because like you said, communications is a complex industry. It's changing really, really quickly, which is kind of impressive. When I first joined the fire service, I had the equivalent of like a flip phone. And now the radios that you can see on the video here, those are like the most advanced. I mean, they're little computers. So how are you guys sort of preparing and thinking about that evolution in the radio, like switching to LTE, for instance, as a primary option for a radio versus before it was like a cool, nice to have?
Yeah. So really, I mean, the driver for that has been the market, in terms of hardened networks across the cellular side of the business, right? That historically they were focused on commercial operations. Obviously they're coming out with public safety grade service. So what does that mean? It's essentially that it has to be on and it has to be there. And so, providing things like priority, getting access to the network when you need it. Historically, that's all been private LMR because, those things were designed for mission critical operations. And so things like backup power and redundant connectivity, all that stuff is being poured into these carrier networks now. And so why not leverage that capability and connectivity that's there, especially as, it's costly to build out your own network. And so we're seeing a lot of customers now start to leverage that capability by, supplementing what they have with, some of that carrier coverage that's already out in the field, as well as in cities, right, where there's in-building coverage that may not necessarily be there from their LMR system. So,
I mean, that was definitely a challenge that I've seen. And Aaron, I mean, I guess, you're in charge of sort of how do you communicate this stuff to the end users who have to, use it. I think that evolving that approach is probably pretty challenging, right? You're getting people who maybe aren't used to having so much power and access in their handheld, and now you're giving them all these features. So how have you guys sort of like prepared yourself to communicate that to agencies so they can take advantage of it?
It's definitely been eye-opening being here over the last almost 6 years. You'd be surprised how people don't even know who we are first, right? Who's L3 Harris? What is your radio product? And we have to get that introduction. And that's been a big focus of ours since I took over the sales organization, was how do we get more people out there saying our name and seeing our product, right? And then the other thing we've seen is the adoption of LTE and LMR, convergence, right? We call it convergence, and a lot of time we think, oh, everybody understands what we're saying, but we end up speaking our own language when we're in this industry. And convergence is really the bringing into one device LMR and LTE, and eventually other technologies, right? You will see satellite probably come a long way. We're seeing use cases out in Australia. Western Australia Police is a customer of ours. They're running satellite on their cars because they cover both the city, and if you've been to Australia, you go inland, right? And they have a vast, wide open area of land that they may get called out to support. So they've actually incorporated satellite onto their cars, which then feeds off through a kind of ISSI type connection to our radio. And so they're running the products you see here in remote areas of Australia, leveraging LTE, satellite, and LMR. And in other cases, right, we're seeing private LTE. So mission critical push to talk on private LTE networks. Most recently in the last year, that's really taken off in Georgia with Southern Link, which is a division of Southern Company. And they're running mission critical push to talk on their private LTE network. And now the message is starting to get out because now you actually have a highway patrol running their state troopers along all of the state of Georgia on mission critical push to talk with our radios on a private LTE network. Those type of things and having customers here is what's driving adoption that we're seeing. Honestly, a huge swing in the last 12 months, probably, of people bringing out more and more LTE. How do I use it? How do I leverage it? Can we talk to a customer? And now there's use cases and they're more comfortable with the idea that, okay, I won't be first and help me understand. And so you're seeing that both also on that side, but also AT&T.
Yeah, I think that is something, again, as a responder, I still do emergency management. I still do, response stuff. Seeing communications at the top of every after action report, like it didn't work. I didn't have a signal. I didn't have the channel. I couldn't, communicate with my neighboring agency. All of these things that we've dealt with now for, essentially the entire existence of radio communications. It is now feeling like there are so many options and abilities and capabilities within these radios that I feel confident like that is not going to be an issue in the future. I think the LTE thing is, especially being able to, as you're traveling, right? Like if you're in an area where there isn't cell phone, the traditional LMR network, might, because it's a higher power, might be the option. When you're in a city, I mean, there's just cell and Wi-Fi everywhere. So there's almost like there's no dark spots that you have to worry about. And like you said, there's other things coming down the line that are going to benefit from this as well. So, things like you were talking about some of your partners, integrating, your body cam to your radio, integrating or using your radio as a hotspot. In fact, you joked about it at one point, or I don't know if we were recording yet, but are you running this video stream off one of the radios? That's a real thing. Like I just can't even fathom that even a couple years ago. And now you have a device that can do everything. And as an emergency manager, I used to carry around 2 radios because I was on multiple different networks on different frequencies. My Wi-Fi hotspot, a laptop. So if I needed to stream a webcam with me, essentially I can shrink that down to, the XL400 there and do everything. I think it's just like, it's amazing to me.
Yep, it absolutely is.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day for first responder communications, at the end of the day, what they want it to do is just work, right?
Sure.
So it doesn't matter what communication path they're going over, whether it's LMR or LTE. Obviously, we want to make sure that LTE network is hardened, but they just want to push the button and make it work. So we've done a lot of things with these devices to make it easy on the user to be able to do that, right? Switching to that particular channel and pushing the button and getting back to the other first responders that they're working with. So, simplicity of operations is key to that. Obviously, there's a lot of technology built into these devices to make the back end work. But again, push the button and others can hear you. That's what we're going for.
Yeah.
So let's talk about that then, because one of the cool things when we were at one of our trainings, we had Don there, and he was talking about how you all will actually go out with first responders and see how they use the devices, listen to their responses. So how do you sort of take that input and then, deliver that into the product? And, since you guys are also in sales, like, how do you convey that message? Like, we're trying to make this better. And if someone wants to make a recommendation, how do they get back to you to sort of say, hey, could the radio do this maybe?
Yeah, a couple things there. So we've run a few voice of the customer campaigns. In fact, in my previous role of product management, that was really what I was doing is kind of gathering information from the market on what we needed to do to build a fire radio that was going to work for fire operations. And so it's more than just talking to one customer, right? It's riding along with city operations, rural fire, a variety of different customers across the entire space, as well as some of our federal customers that were looking for tough devices, and seeing how they interacted with the radio. What other gear are they wearing while they're doing that? Taking that information back, kind of boiling it down to kind of key things that we want to look for, right? When we did the voice of the customer on the 200, it was really make it light, make it loud, make the battery last a long time. with a 400, I mean, it's a completely different use case, right? It's got to be tough. It's got to be able to survive drops, water, heat, falling off the side of a building. We ran that test a couple times just to take it to construction or to destruction as much as we could. But, it also has to have the ability to interoperate with it with your gloves on. And then, some of those visual things that we do to make it easy to see what channel you're on. You look at PD, they basically stay on the same channel all day. Fire, they're interoperating with that radio all the time, changing channels between dispatch and tactical on-scene frequencies and other, mutual aid channels. And so, making sure that those knobs work for them with those well-planned operations. A lot of that was built into this. And so, it was an extensive campaign. I think we spent the better part of 2 years talking to customers there. So,
and we're still getting feedback. I mean, so where we have radios deployed that are new, like the Fire radio, or running MCPTT right now for use cases on AT&T, we're constantly having our field engineer team out there, our troubleshooting team out there documenting what are they seeing, what do they want to have it operate, because we've learned a lot from running, LTE per se, and what are they looking for, how they scan zones, right? It's different on the LTE side versus how LMR is done. And so we're seeing those things live as we ride in the car along with the police unit or the chief or whoever, getting that feedback, capturing it, whether we record a video or document it down, and then we come back and we have meetings right away and say, okay, we needed to do it X, Y, and Z. Then the engineers start getting on the next code or software release, and then we're constantly putting out new revisions of software and going back out and hand-holding them and deploying it ourselves, and then watching how it works to make sure it doesn't fail up in the field.
Yeah, and that's impressive because it requires a pretty flat structure when you're dealing with this stuff. Like, you're sharing stuff interoperably within your own team. Like you said, you're talking to product managers, you're talking to the engineers, and you're building this stuff like kind of dynamically. Like, there was a really cool story, and I was really lucky to attend the Mission Critical Alliance Summit, and they were talking about a use case where you had to fix the overhead speaker system, like tornado sirens speaker system, and the customer didn't have a solution. They had no hardwired way to go. And so, like, the sales folks were working with the engineering folks, and like, yeah, I think we can use the radios and do a data link between this to run your tornado siren. And on top of that, you'll know if that link is live, which you probably couldn't do previous to that, which I thought was like the coolest thing. And it happened like shockingly fast.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just think that's like the coolest thing about what you guys do. I mean, that's something that is, to me, again, when I think of, and you actually, I want to hit on one thing that you said specifically. You said the local volunteer firefighter. It's something that I think a lot of agencies forget about, right? Like, a lot of companies, they're looking towards the big fish, the FDNYs, the LAPDs and stuff. But you all have said very specifically on numerous occasions, like, you are looking out for the responder who doesn't have those resources, and this is just as critical. So maybe talk a little bit about the fact that, like, of course you guys want the big contracts, like that's the goal that helps fund everything, but how you actually do cater to those really small agencies that really probably have the most need and the most trouble with their systems.
Yeah. Well, it goes without saying that with the bigger fish comes a lot bigger politics. Right?
Sure.
We could have a whole separate podcast on that. But, just Google any YouTube commissioner meeting and watch the sports. Yeah. So, you nailed it, right? There's a lot of small fire agencies out there that don't get a lot of attention to, but are critical because there's many a county, including right here in our backyard in Central Virginia, whose fire support is all volunteer based. They're not professional paid firefighters, and they still have a job to do every day. It's a huge county, many counties out there that are massive that require multiple volunteer fire agencies to support them. And so whether it's grant support and we help them on grant funding, whether it's finding the best deal we can get them to find a way to fund them getting the products they need, it's really imperative, because you'd be surprised how many of them are out buying their own used radios on eBay. I mean, I've seen that multiple times, buying parts from eBay to make their radios work that are still 20, 30 years old. And so, it's a passion of ours to make sure everybody should have access to the latest and greatest technology. And we have started up a kind of a big grant support team just so that we can help write the grants for them and go after even financing. We work with local banks. Bank of America is one that we work with that have less than 5% rates so they can finance if they need to. We'll go support them at the county commissioner meetings, right, to say, hey, this is why this is important, and do everything we can really to get the support they need to operate like a major fire department.
Wow, that's really cool. And just the fact, the grant writing, that's another like thing that, again, I've worked with a lot of volunteers, small agencies, and that component it's really tough. Like writing grants is not easy. It's a lot of sort of legal, documentation that, if you're the fire chief, who's the road commissioner and, the potentially the wastewater treatment manager, all of these different roles that people have, like trying to spend time to just sort of like get through that process is really tough. And so that's really, again, as someone who truly like that's where my heart is with all the volunteers across the country, because that's the majority of our responders. I greatly appreciate that. I think that's really cool. Hopefully everyone heard that. They can help you figure out how to fund it. If you need new radios or radio equipment, reach out to these folks. They can help you figure it out. So let's talk about like some of the evolutions. I know one of the things that you all are really trying to work towards is getting some of your radios into more like law enforcement hands, right? So what are some of the safety features of your radios and things that you're thinking about with, we've talked about like firefighters and stuff, but like for cops, like what are some of the things that you guys are working towards to help them? Because that's where I saw some of the cool stuff that's coming down the line with like, the body cam streaming or streaming from your in-car camera, automatic vehicle location, emergency location. How are you sort of building the features for the law enforcement field?
Yeah, you hit on a couple of them there. So, again, with LTE built into this device, whether it's the 400 or the 200 across our entire Converge and Extreme line, we do have LTE modules built in, but think of that as a hotspot on your hip. These things all come standard with features like GPS, Bluetooth connectivity, and obviously Wi-Fi hotspot, right? So now if you've got a network-based device, whether it's a body camera or some other sensor device, maybe gunshot detection type of software that's running on a sensor there, or some other sensor that can tether via Bluetooth, all of those can be fed back to, an incident command platform that we've been working with that, can cater to both police and fire, right? So because their needs are different, some of the alerts that happen live are different for police than they are for fire, right? So it's important to track those things and know what those sensors are on the body of the officer that's out there in the field. But really, we want to feed that information back to somebody that can do something about it. And so that's kind of what we're looking at is various different technologies that we can tether to this. We have done some testing with some gunshot detection. When the gun is pulled from the holster and when the actual shot's fired, we can feed that information back to a dispatcher, feed that back to an incident commander so that they can make real-time decisions what they're going to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think it's sort of this evolution, not just in the radio, but in the role of responders. How, just because you guys get to spend a lot of time talking to them, how are you sort of helping to bridge this, technology divide between sort of these legacy systems and now these much more advanced systems where, I was a firefighter and I actually was a cop for a little while. Maybe not a crowd that is 100% comfortable with, big change, especially when it comes to technology. Like you said, they just want to push the button and make sure it works. But these are features that are like life-saving, potentially liability covering, potentially making their job easier. How you sort of communicate to those folks like this is a good step and here's how we can help prepare you for it.
And it's really about, building blocks, right? I mean, we want to start with mission critical voice because that's what's most important for the first responders. And again, having that capability built into the radios, you can start to kind of add things on, test them out as you see fit. A lot of these, programs that we're working with, we're introducing these new technologies through the MCA, Mission Critical Alliance, and some of the capabilities that we can get there. Some of those technologies we don't even build in-house, right? We're partnering with others that provide kind of best of breed solutions there. So, if there is a GPS mapping module that you want to interact with that has digital whiteboarding capabilities and the ability to take in other feeds of data, let's work with them. Bring them to the table, have them sit down with the customer and lay out what they're looking to do. So, I guess what I would say to that question is really it's a crawl, walk, run, right? Let's start small, see what some of these different technologies that we have available to us in the MCA can do for you, and then kind of build that base up and add on to it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely takes time. As we talked about, the bigger cities, the bigger customers. I mean, it's definitely a walk. Initially we'll have meetings with multiple partners in there: Axon, ShotSpotter, Tyler, AT&T. There's multiple vendors who are all calling on the same customers every single day of the week. And so what we do with the open environment, open API, share everything. We have nothing to hide, secret. We want to keep it all to ourselves type mentality. Is we reach out to them and find out, okay, who's your salesperson in my area, and who's your local leader, and then we partner with them and say, okay, hey, we're working here, and let's come up with a joint solution that best serves this customer. Not only to save them money, but also to give them the best technology that benefits them as what they're doing, whether it's fire or law enforcement, but also the taxpayers. I mean, there's the benefit of technology for all of us is to ultimately save money and make our lives easier, right? So when we pick up our cell phone today, we expect it to work, and when it doesn't, we get frustrated. And the same idea is with my radio. Whether it's, I don't care what technology it is, but I need it to work, and I need it to work all the time, and that's really it. And so, working with LTE and body camera, whoever, it's okay. What are they looking to do, and how can we incorporate or use the benefits we have or the benefits you have to make the best solution for them? That's going back to, again, what we talked about at the beginning. Is our goal is not to just go sell them a widget. It's solve a problem, and each of them have a problem. It's just they got to hear it and then kind of come up with the idea that, okay, something new isn't so bad. It's not so hard to change, and maybe this will work.
Yeah, I think that sort of speaks to the, shift from sort of devices being like an accessory to they're kind of being now a technology enterprise for a public safety agency. It's now your dispatch center, your 911 call handling, your radios, your, potentially, cameras that you have set up to monitor areas are all starting to integrate. You guys have talked about it. I alluded to it a little bit, but like the Mission Critical Alliance and specifically some of the cybersecurity things that come with that, I think are huge benefits and force multipliers that a lot of folks don't think about. So I've had to build a dispatch center before. And one of the things, like you guys were talking about, that like open AI architecture, communicating with the other vendors, that is not something that is done across the field. The other guy that I'm not going to say their name that refuses to integrate with anyone who has not been sort of like, blessed by them, makes it really difficult to make sure that you're able to secure all those gaps and not leave yourself vulnerable. Certainly as we shift much more into IP-based radio, video, communications, there's a different level of preparedness that an agency has to have. So maybe talk about, this is a very long-winded way to get here, but like, how is cybersecurity, and maybe Aaron, you can answer this because you said you have a bit of a background in this as well. How is cybersecurity starting to play out in your system development? And then maybe describe how the MCA solves a lot of these issues, because I think that is something that I had never seen before and experienced before in my procurement of equipment and technology. And then, Jason, you can certainly chime in on your thoughts and maybe the technical aspects as well.
Yeah, it's a couple things, right? So let's start at the high level. Ownership has been, I think, an industry challenge, right? You have in some areas, police or fire may own a radio system, and as we said, they just want it to work, but they have no idea what's happening behind the doors, right?
Sure.
It's like the Wizard of Oz. I mean, what's behind the curtains? And so when they think they're protected, they really have no idea what that means. They may have a maintenance contract with the vendor and think, oh, I'm good, I pay for a maintenance contract. That maintenance contract may have zero to do with cybersecurity. I mean, we've seen it multiple times. In the last 12 months, we've seen multiple attacks happen on LMR networks, specifically targeting radio communications. And nothing more simply to then just shut it down and take it offline, which then, creates a very difficult challenge of communication for a local police agency.
Yeah.
And so I think the awareness is becoming more real. And the other piece is the IT department's getting more involved in the systems, right? So now you're starting to see the county departments say, maybe we should own this. And there's resistance, right? I get it. Everybody wants to own their own system, but the IT department is more equipped to understand, do we really have, are we following the cyber practices of the county or city? And then what are the protections that are in place? And then they start looking into, okay, what are our options? What vendors out there can provide this? There's consultants they can go to for a needs assessment. You see it all the time. So you're starting to see the talk happening because nobody wants to go through the worst situation, which is, a ransomware attack, and they're locked out for usually 2 to 3 days, what it takes to get out. So that's the first piece is really the ownership and education and getting the right owners involved. So oftentimes we have to then bring in IT to a police or fire owned system to say, they think they're protected, but we don't think they are. Let's look at that. Technology, there's a lot of options. I'll let Jason kind of go into what we're doing, but it's as simple as what we do today, right? 2-factor authentication is step one. And a lot of people don't even realize they don't have it turned on, and they have to, right? That's immediate. It needs to happen for our own personal emails. We do it now. It's the same thing for a radio network. And then there's other options out there, which I'll let Jason talk to you about from who we're partnering with. Again, as we talk about, we may not have all the resources. So we go look to see who's got the best in class solution that we can partner with. As far as our system, we're a defense contractor, L3 Harris. So with that, it becomes, as Jason mentioned, hardened system. So we've been cool before country was cool, right? And so cyber has been built into our networks from day one because we designed systems for all your communication networks that go to war across the globe. And whether it's satellite, different waveforms, green tactical radios, from your old Army days or whatever. So our networks are hardened already with the latest advancements in cybersecurity built into it. And so that's kind of a thing that we do, whether it's our push-to-talk app on Beyond, which has got end-to-end encryption that's been out there for 10 years. So we understand what it takes to be cyber compliant and resilient. And then we also expand our benefits to other companies as well. Yeah.
So in addition to, all those different areas that we serve, I mean, we do sell a lot of LMR systems to the federal government as well. And as you can imagine, this has got probably the highest stringent standards when it comes to cybersecurity. Going back to the MCA, when we were vetting partners, you can't just say, hey, I want to join the MCA and you're in, right? It's not like a backyard club. We put you through a pretty rigorous step-by-step process, and cyber is part of that. And so
you have an actual lab where you test this stuff.
We do. And so as part of that, a lot of the partners were already selling into public safety space, and they were ahead of the game when it came to cyber. Some of those partners, they were behind, and we kind of put the screws to them to make sure that they updated their posture there to be able to support that. So that's a big part of it's a mission critical alliance, right? So mission critical means it's got to always work. And so, protecting yourself from some of the bad actors that are out there is a key component of the overall program. And so, in addition to coming up with creative ways to solve problems, making sure those are secure, testing those things out and vetting them, and making sure that we're the ones doing the integration, not the customer, the end customer having to do their own integration. We don't want to do that. We want to do that all ahead of time so that we know which system releases talk to what, and that it's supported for the duration of that system offering, which could be anywhere from 15 to 20 years, right? So that's, kind of a big part of making sure that not only are our systems secure, but everybody else that we're interacting with are also secure, so we don't have any vulnerabilities there.
Yeah. So I think just to sort of round out the conversation here, I think what I would like to hear is sort of your thoughts as a agency is coming up to, maybe they're aging out of a system or they're looking towards, what is the next, system that they want to build. And I mean that like sort of holistically, right? Your portables, your dispatch consoles, maybe your mobiles. How do they start this conversation? Who should be involved? And, what are some of the maybe pitfalls that you all see on the sales side where, you can help them sort of shortcut their way through this process? Because it is a really challenging process. I've been through it. So like, first of all, like who do they bring to the table, right? And what are maybe some of the questions they need to ask before they're reaching out to you so that you all can help them through that, the funding and the engineering and everything else?
Yeah, it's a lot to consider. So, I mean, there's consultants is one bucket, right? Do I get the right consultant who has the best in class background for consulting to be unbiased, vendor agnostic, just ensure that they do a true needs analysis that addresses the problem, and then it's fair game for everyone to go after. That's one piece, right? So you got to get the right partner, and we work with all the different consultants and have recommendations based on what we've seen. Another piece is it's really about bringing in vendors and doing demos. Really put your hands on it, get to know the product from everybody to see how it works, what do you like, what do you don't like, and have everybody from across the agency provide that evaluation. Put it in the field. Don't let just command staff look at it. Make sure you put it out in the cars and let them run with it. Let firefighters take it into burn buildings, right? So getting that experience with that is key as well, because a lot of times they don't know what they can or can't get because they've never seen it.
Yeah.
The other piece, we talked about with LTE is the old mentality every 10, 15 years, which was mind-blowing to me, was I invested $50 million for an LMR system back in 2010. Well, it's 2024. Time to get my budget ready, County Commissioner. I need another $50 million for phase 2. I was phase 1. Now phase 2 is cool, and I got to go phase 2. Maybe not anymore, right? I mean, the idea of mission critical push to talk and LTE is maybe we can supplement your phase 1 with more LTE towers.
Yeah.
We can bring in AT&T. AT&T's job, as hired by FirstNet government, is to build out their network. And so maybe they are looking to put more sites in your area to increase coverage for everybody, and that benefits you. And then guess what? There's little cost for you involved. The maintenance is on them, and it's really more about leveraging LTE. So again, there's options now where it's not the old school mentality of like, I've got to buy an LMR system. Let's get our purses ready because it's going to cost a lot of money. Maybe we can phase this and do it in pieces and come up with creative ideas and brainstorm with vendors versus just treating them as a business transaction. Treat it like a partnership, right? This is really an investment of your time and money. Then treat it that way and invest in it and have the conversations instead of just leaving it out and sitting in a room by yourself with other people that may think like it's still 2010 and not realize that, we can get ideas from different people in today. So, that's kind of my advice on what I see. I don't know if you have anything else. But.
Yeah, I mean, involving the users, I think is a key aspect of this, right? I mean, trying to go out and do a procurement and, design a system without the input from the users of what they're actually looking for and what they really need is, going to make it more difficult to deploy that system down the road because the users don't have the buy-in into that. And so, as you pointed out, Aaron, a lot of the consultants will do a needs assessment and interview the various different agency groups that'll be a part of this system. But those technology days, those demo days, going out to a trade show event, we're hosting a handful of those. Zach, I'll see you in Vancouver here in a couple of weeks, where we're going to be running an event scenario where you can see how that technology can be used to solve your specific, challenges that you're facing in the field. Understanding what you can do with it, I think that's a key part of it as well.
Yeah. And, just foot stomping, bringing in your radio techs, your IT folks that maybe aren't part of that conversation is certainly helpful. And Aaron, you hit on something, talking about those big leaps, right? Yeah. You have to spend the tens of millions or hundreds of millions of dollars to completely rebuild a system every decade, or it doesn't happen, which is usually the actual case. Is you'll see you've got officers or firefighters or EMTs with the latest and greatest portable, but it's running off of like an absolute dinosaur of a system, and which is even scarier. And cell phone carriers upgrade their stuff all the time because that's their incentive is to make it faster, make it better, get more clients on a single site. And then, like you said, the FirstNet Authority has a directive. They get a lot of federal money to build this system to do what they said it could do. So if, using you guys as partners and FirstNet, with their authority that was given to them by the federal government, I sat through a talk a few weeks ago. I was down at Anniston, Alabama at the National Preparedness Center with a whole bunch of emergency managers. And one of the talks that was given was a detective that had responded to the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting in Florida. And one of the things that I just was like, it was just so upsetting and frustrating was they had a situation, where a shooter's running through a campus and they knew where the person was and they're trying to share this information, but they're legacy system like was timing out, and they had planned to upgrade it, but it was in the process of upgrading. And just that time as they're like trying to build out the system and upgrade it, and I'm sure the system was probably a great system was installed, and the next one's going to be just as great. But that process, just that delay, every single minute that you are like, here's where we're at and here's where we need to go, where it's affecting the responders, it's not something that should be accepted, but it's the way we've done business for so long that we just sort of accept that. But in that case, and I don't know if it ultimately led to, more injuries or deaths, but certainly it's not helping. So how do we move back beyond that? Like you said, I mean, you could turn on essentially, if they have the portables, you could build them as complex a radio system as they need using the LTE push to talk today. In fact, we were talking about, I joked on the call for the Vancouver situation, like, how many channels should we have? But I think it was Jason who said, well, do you want 256? I was like, I don't think that's going to be necessary. But that's the reality as we start to think outside the box of like, moving beyond sort of the traditional LMR model and moving towards these communication devices as it's almost like the Internet of Things of radio communication. So I think it's just so important for you to talk about that, because I think that's a lot of agencies don't upgrade because the process is so onerous and scary and expensive that they just sit with these broken systems for so long. And the truth is, an LMR system that's running 24/7, 365 for a decade, it doesn't matter how, it could be the best L3 Harris, it could be the best of anyone else. That's a lot of duty cycles. And you got lightning strikes, you've got power surges, you've got, just wear down and tear down of equipment. So I think that is a really good sort of way to put a bow on this entire conversation, is start to think differently and bring folks to the table that maybe you haven't in the past. And, even maybe just a quick thought is like, as an agency might be looking towards this, especially if it's an LTE thing, should they bring in like the bus, the transit authority? Should they bring in the wastewater folks, the road folks? Because, in the past, if you're updating a public safety trunking system, right, like you're focusing on that and then everyone else gets added at the end. But when it's a push to talk LTE, like just tell us what you need to do, right?
Yep. No, that's exactly right. I mean, every day we work in large counties, city areas that will have a transit authority that is on its own system. And it's, guess what? They have less funding than the police. So that system, if you think yours is old, there's a mouse in the wheel crawling, right? And so bring them in, because guarantee they can benefit from those type of LTE type solutions. And we already see it now. I mean, we're having more and more. It's literally taken off in the last year and a half or so, or a year. This whole LTE can be used as a communication source for public safety as well as transits and others. So it's really exciting. Honestly, you can see technology really taking off, and users not only are getting on board with that idea in the public safety world.
What are you guys excited about? Like, what's the next thing, or what's coming down the line from L3 Harris, or just even, things that you have that you're super pumped about that you want to get out there?
I mean, getting our devices out there. I think every time we sit down with a customer, Aaron pointed it out earlier, they didn't even know who we were.
Yeah.
And so sitting down with them, listening to what they're challenged with in their organization and how we can help solve those problems. I get excited about that every day. I wouldn't have been here for 25 years if that wasn't the case. So I love getting out in front of customers, talking to them. I'm trying to solve, whatever challenges they are, whether it's coverage or interoperability or, getting into some of these new technologies that we're looking at, like things like location services and that sort of thing. We're just excited to get out and do that. We've done a huge hiring spree, right? We've got a lot more feet on the street than we have in the past. And so that's opening up more doors, and that's exciting for us too. So
yeah, it's definitely what keeps me going every day, excited, wake up every morning, because every day I'll get a report from, hey, we just had an exciting talk in city A, Y, or Z, and there was multiple vendors there. We were all collaborating together, and the customer is like truly on board with something new and different, and they want to do a demo, right? And then I call Jason and say, hey, demo team, because Jason has all the demo team under me. And our demo team is hot item right now. They can't keep up. And that's what's exciting right now is that people are actually, for the first time, you're actually seeing a lot of people opening up the idea of trying something different, right? And that's exciting. And it doesn't have to be us, but it's the idea that there's something else out there, and maybe I will get treated differently. Maybe my support will be different, and it may change their outlook on, oh, it's just another company that doesn't care about me and only cares about their bottom line, or they only care about their product, and that's it. But it's when you finally see them and hear back from them and say like, wow, the service has been amazing. You all have been wonderful to work with. That's what makes me smile every day, because it truly should be that way. And that's why, I talk about partnership and family and working together. And that's the way it should be everywhere across the U.S. So that's been exciting for us.
Yeah, I think
that's awesome. Yeah.
Our purpose is really to make elated customers. That's what we're about. That's what we, everything from engineering to sales to, program management. We want our customers to be elated after we have sold them a system or sold them a device, and it works and it solves, the problems that they're facing.
Man, what a great way to end a podcast. So like was alluded to, we are going to do a really fun exercise and demo. So we're trying to move away from just like, yeah, let's play with the buttons and stuff, and like, let's actually show how this system works. So we'll be out in Vancouver, Washington for Stressing Communications. There'll be an ad roll ahead of this, so you've already heard this, but I'm going to foot stomp it. Go check that out. In the description, I'll have links to L3 Harris, as well as the link to register for that event. And your LinkedIn contacts, if that's okay, so that we can blow you guys up and get you some more followers and stuff. And I'll say it again. I've been a radio geek my entire life. I'm a geek in general. But it's been so awesome working with L3 Harris and getting to play with all your new technology, learn about all the things that you're doing. I am a genuine fan. This has nothing to do with sponsorships. This has nothing to do with the events. This has to do with me as a responder and emergency manager for my entire professional life. To have a company that truly cares about the responders and the equipment and making sure that it works above all else, right? Mission first is that something that I think you guys take to heart. I really appreciate it, and I get excited every time I get to talk to you guys because there's always something new. There's always something exciting. And I think as soon as all the other folks that listen to this go out and start to look at your stuff, they're going to be just as excited and pumped as well. So I really appreciate both of you joining us. And I hope to have future conversations as well, because I think there's so much stuff coming down the line from you all that we're going to want to talk about that, one conversation is just not enough.
Yeah, well, thank you, Zach. Really appreciate the time.
Awesome. All right. So yes, follow the links, the comment, any questions, let us know. You can reach out to me or them or any of the L3 sales team, and we'll talk later.
All right.
All right.
Cheers.